everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorials with RealmSmith. I want to again thank our sponsors as usual, D&D, for hosting us this evening. To WizKids, of course, for the incredible miniatures that we have on the table. And as always, Vallejo for the awesome paints that we use to paint these miniatures. Want to say happy turkey, happy Thanksgiving to all of you in the States. We are in Canada. We already had our Thanksgiving in October. I know it might be a bit of a quieter night tonight because of that, and that's okay. With the VOD version of this tutorial will be available on the RealmSmith YouTube channel as well as on the D&D YouTube channel later this week, so you can check that out. A couple of announcements really quick before we get into painting some awesome golems. We're painting two golems tonight. We'll be painting the clay golem and the iron golem together in the next hour and a half to 2 hours. Hopefully. First thing first, this coming Thursday, we are driving out to PAX. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we will be at PAX Unplugged, live on the show floor in the Vallejo booth, and we'll be doing master classes, taking Nolzur's live to you guys at the show. So if you're at PAX Unplugged, please make sure that you stop by the booth, you say hi, you sign up for the events. You can sign up for the events at 10 o'clock in the morning when the show opens every day, and then basically you'll sign up for each individual day at the beginning of each day. So check out the site, paxsite.com, unplug.paxsite.com, and you'll get the event list there. It lists all the minis that we're doing, and then also we post it on our Instagram as well as our Facebook page that we will have some guest hosts, including Ben Looms and Rick Ankney and the Nerdarchy guys and the Dungeon Dudes and a bunch of other awesome a few other awesome people. So anyways, make sure that you tune in, check that out, and if you're at PAX, please stop by, say hi at the RealmSmith booth or at the Vallejo booth. We're super excited to be there. Launched the December schedule for Nolzur's yesterday, or the day before yesterday. Today is Clay Golems. Next week is going to be Shambling Mound. It's not going to be live, but it will be the session that we tape at PAX on the floor. We will be airing on Sunday night, not live, like I said, because we'll still be, I think, at the show at the time that this is supposed to be going. So that isn't going to work out. We'll be tearing down and stuff, but we will have an episode. We missed the Shambling Mound, so you will get your Shambling Mound after all at that time. Then after that, we have Vampire Hunters, mid-December, and then finally closing off December with Vampire, which is modeled after Strahd. And the reason I tell you that, there's a reason. And I know Vampire is in December near Christmas. The reason we're doing that is because RealmSmith is launching a Curse of Strahd campaign starting January 6th. We're calling it Into the Mist, and we'll be playing live D&D through Curse of Strahd for January, February, and March. It's a limited series run. We're doing that from now on. We're doing limited 3-month seasons, and we'll be doing different, just so people can actually come in and watch for the beginning and then continue on later in it. So please join us January 6th, and then we'll be doing it every Monday after that. And it's a fun interactive stream, which will be fun. And the reason I tell you that is because you guys can actually affect the game from your homes, and it's something that we haven't necessarily seen done before in this world, and are excited about it. Make sure that you guys check out the paint nights. Pay attention to your local game stores. WizKids and Vallejo and us have partnered together to bring you paint nights for D&D's Nolzur's miniatures in your stores. They did the Beholder, they're launching the next one, and then I just did the video for the third one. You guys are going to be super crazy excited because it's an unreleased mini for that third month of, or for that third paint night tutorial. So stay on your stores, ask them about it, make sure that they sign up for the organized paint nights in your stores, and you'll be following videos from RealmSmith during that, and we're very honored and awesome to be there. All right, let's jump right in here, folks. Of course, for tool list, as usual, we have the iron and the clay golem miniatures from WizKids. We'll need some brushes. Of course, we're using our usual Vallejo brushes. It'll be a 0, a 1, and a 2. We also have a dry brush, which is a number 4 brush, more or less. And that's just going to be for more of the heavy lifting stuff. A glass of, or a cup of water for rinsing off your brushes, as well as diluting your paints. Some paper towel for dry brushing and cleaning your brushes, as well as a paint palette for mixing and all of that fun stuff. For our paint list tonight, got quite a few colors here, but obviously that will be for both of them. So for the Iron Golem, we'll be starting with the gunmetal with a black wash. Then we're gonna add a red ink because it's got a reddish tinge to it in the monster manual. Silver for some edge highlights, and then orange fire and yellow for the eyes. And then we're gonna do some really fun stuff with rust, dry rust, fuel stains, and rust texture, which are all weathering effects from Vallejo. And then for the clay golem, it's actually quite simple: heavy sienna, a black wash, dark flesh tone, and parasite brown for that. Let's jump right in. As usual, we're in the chat. I've got a Facebook and I've got Twitch open. You guys have any questions, comments, suggestions? If you guys have already done these miniatures, let me know. And I'd love to hear and see what you guys do. If you do watch the VODs or this, make sure that when you post pictures online of your awesome painted creations, please tag us in them. We love to see it, so make sure that you tag D&D and you tag WizKids and you tag RealmSmith, because we absolutely love to see your awesome creations. We are going to start with the Iron Golem. It's a really awesome, cool sculpt, but we are going to start with an all-over base coat of gun metal. Now, with gun metal, it's not a base paint, but the Vallejo metallics are actually quite thick and strong. So it's actually going to get done a lot faster than a typical kind of layer paint or regular color paint would. So we're just going to load the brush here, and we're going to start to go through here. And for this, we're not worried about anything other than giving really great coverage. We don't want to put too much paint on there. We absolutely don't want to obscure any details, but we're just going around. I'm using the number 4 dry brush, more or less, for this. So I'm just going to go in behind the head and give it a really great base coat all over, including the sword, but not including the base. So that ground texture, which is like a rock kind of texture, we're going to leave that unpainted so that we can do that a little bit later in the stream. How is everybody doing? In Toronto right now, we've got an ice storm happening. We've been having them during the winter last couple years. A number of years ago, we actually shut down part of the area because the ice storms were so bad that they were breaking down tree limbs because of the weight of the ice. That was like New Year's, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. Anybody who lives in my area of the world could probably attest to that. Phoenix Wolf King is on and has a question. Jason, first off, love the intro. And what is your favorite golem, giant, and spider? That's good. Love these questions from Wolf King. Favorite golem? Man, that's a good one. I don't know if I have a favorite golem. I just never necessarily thought about it. I think the creepiest golem, and the one that's kind of like the most, I guess gets the greatest reaction from my players at the table, would have to be the flesh golem, because it's just creepy. It's basically Frankenstein. Love the flesh golem, and it's super creepy. But the iron golem's pretty cool. Stone golem's awesome. Man, there's a lot of really cool golems. And this iron golem, man, it's pretty awesome. This sculpt is amazing. And then you asked me about spiders. I don't know, but I think I like the Driders, for example, the underworld, the Underdark creatures, denizens of the deep, are pretty stinking cool. Hello from sunny California. Hi, Havana Kid. Just rubbing it in a little bit, eh? Just rubbing it in that we have a ice storm here in Toronto, and you're in sunny California. I love California. If I could be anywhere other than Toronto, I would be in California. I love it. I love San Diego. I love LA. Man, I love San Francisco. Just such a cool area. I was there quite a bit actually this past summer in LA specifically. So I love it there, and I wish I could spend more time there. I would absolutely live there if I could. But alas, it is not in the cards, folks. It's not in the cards right now. Now, getting behind the sword is fun. But thankfully, this is all quite bendy, so I can just kind of bend it back a little bit. The nice thing is nobody's really going to see the back of that sword, so as long as you get most of it, then you have to be worried about it. Again, we are using gunmetal for a base coat on this entire Iron Golem. And then we're going to do some really fun weathering effects on this thing. We haven't had a chance to do that. And frankly, in D&D, you know, in wargaming or even like historical gaming, where you have tanks and stuff, you get to do lots of weathering in that. But in D&D, there isn't the opportunity to do a heck of a lot of it. So I love when I get the chance to do something like an Iron Golem, where I can go a little nuts. I come from a wargaming, like tabletop wargaming background, strategy wargaming background. So I do love me some metal weathering techniques. So I get to employ some of those fun ones here. We'll teach you guys some of them. Hey Mikey, hey Dopey, hey Oso. All the regulars are on even during Thanksgiving. It's so nice. So sweet. Also, folks, I didn't mention that we have a Black Friday sale right now on our boxes. If you're interested in the RealmSmith Adventure Box, if you head to our website, you can subscribe and get your box. First box for $30 off. So that's like $39 for the first box if you get it without the paints. And you can try it. If you know, you can cancel at any time. So if you get your first one, you don't love it, or it's not for you, then you can feel free, or things change for whatever reason, then you can cancel. But it's just an opportunity for people to kind of try it out, see if they like it. So again, that's at realmsmith.tv, and then you use the promo code BFCM for Black Friday, Cyber Monday 2019, and that code is actually on the website in the top banner. So just in case you forget it by the time you get there, but check that out. And we'll be running live demos of our boxes in our booth at PAX by the man himself, our resident DM and writer, Brandon Perkins. Okay, man, this is looking all right. So we're doing looks like the Tin Man right now. Feel like I need an oil can. All right. Okay, it's a little hard to get in behind the head here. Kind of along the back here, but that's okay. You know what? We put a black wash in there, and that'll cover that up real nice. So I'm not too worried about it at all. And even still, you know, I've got in some areas it's a little thinner than others, but actually that's not a horrible thing. As long as we have a bit of a metal sheen on most of it, we're actually okay. I'll let that dry for a bit, see how that goes, because it's going to add a little bit of a mottled kind of look and texture. We're going to put that down, let that dry. Now we're going to base coat our clay golem. Now to base coat our clay golem, we are going to use heavy sienna. Heavy sienna is one of the extra opaque paints. We use a lot of these from Vallejo. They're really great for base coating in one coat, which is perfect for this sort of thing, especially when you get a pre-primed model like the WizKids ones, where you just literally take them out of the package, which is what I did, and then jumped right into it. I did some research, because in the monster manual, the clay golem is, show you here, the clay golem is kind of almost like a khaki color, and Welcome, Oso. I just got a little bit of a notification, so welcome. That's so great. That's so awesome. Um, anyways, there's a bit of a tan color, a bit of a khaki color, um, which is fun. But but I actually wanted to go more of a like what I imagine clay to be, which is kind of that reddish color. That's actually the color on the back of the blister pack for this mini. Um, and I wanted it to be a little different than like the stone elemental or sorry, the earth elemental that I did last week. I wanted to do a bit of a different color scheme. So for this one, he's going to be a little bit darker, and he's going to have some reddish colors in his scheme here. And we're just going to go around the entire miniature. I'm diluting the heavy sandy just a touch because it'll flow a lot better into the recesses if it's diluted just a touch. You'll miss a lot less areas. Miss less, yes. You'll miss less areas if you dilute a little bit because it will seep into those crevices and creases a bit better. So I do like to dilute, even though they are the extra opaque paints and we want them not thick, but we want them covering well. A little dilution does not help. Does not hurt. It helps quite a bit, actually. I'm also a little under the weather, folks. My throat's starting to get a little scratchy, and I hope that doesn't mean that things are getting, can't get sick before PAX. It's not good to be sick before conventions. It's typical to get sick after conventions. For those of you that attend conventions on a regular basis know this. Question: what is your favorite campaign and favorite lore? I am partial to. I love the Forgotten Realms. Love the Forgotten Realms. That's kind of my go-to. But I'm super excited to start running Curse of Strahd. January 6th, folks, tune in. We are starting a new live D&D campaign for Curse of Strahd. Don't miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're introducing this really cool interactive mechanic kind of sort of thing system for you folks at home to affect the gameplay, which is crazy. I'm so excited to chat about it and talk about it and show you guys what we're up to. It's going to be awesome. Very, very excited. Very, very excited. All right, so we're getting there, slowly but surely. Just looking at the comments here. And Melanie Hepburn is watching too. Hello, Melanie. Let's take a look here. Lots of Facebook chatter here. Shannon, I have Vallejo's weathering kit. It's great. Yes, it is, Shannon. It is awesome. We're going to use some of those weathering pigments and effects tonight. They're a lot of fun. And then she also says, if flesh to stone is cast upon a flesh golem, does it automatically become a stone golem? That's good. Good question. I would allow that, I think. I would absolutely allow that in my game. Even if it doesn't. That is creativity there. Shannon says, the realms rule. I agree. The realms do rule. Oh man, I can't wait for this Curse of Strahd campaign. It's going to be so fun. I'll tell you, when I started playing D&D, I was about 12 or 13, and I still remember my Curse of Strahd campaign. And it's amazing, D&D, for me, I never remember if I think hard enough I do, but I never really remember the adventures as if I were kind of sitting at a table playing with my friends. I remember them as if, through my character's perspective, if that makes sense. And man, our DM was great, and we ran this crazy Ravenloft. It was called Ravenloft then. Ravenloft campaign, Curse of Strahd. It was awesome, and I'm very excited about that. Okay, so that is done. So this guy is pretty good from a base coat perspective. There's some little areas, but that is going to be taken care of using that black wash. So I'm going to allow that. That is dry. I'm going to take black wash. That is going to take a little while. Black washes always, or washes in general, always take a little while to dry. So I'm just going to put a little black wash in the palette. We are going to dilute it more than usual just because it's really thick. It goes on fairly thick, and I don't want it to obscure the detail too much, and I don't want to darken this gunmetal too badly, or too severely, I should say, not badly necessarily. I just need a bit of a bigger brush here. But I'm just going to go through, and I am kind of doing an all over black wash here, but I'm focusing more so on the recesses. So I'm trying to get in between all of the little plates, and we're going to continue with this black wash all the way around the miniature, and this is going to take a little time to dry, which is okay. We got lots of other stuff to do here. And then I'm going to use red ink over this, which I'm not sure how that's going to go, but as you can see, it's got a bit of a reddish tinge to it. So I am going to use the black wash also on the sword, but I'm not going to do the red ink on the sword. That'll be the difference there. But this black wash will pick up like all of the little nicks and gouges in the metal. All around here. There it is. Around the back, okay. And again, with washes, you don't want it to rest too much in the recesses so that it pools and obscures detail. You don't want that. You want basically just to go into the seams and the dips to provide shadow. Okay. Like that. This is kind of a medium-sized mini. It's not as large as the other ones that we typically do on the show, so this is actually kind of a quick process in comparison. Now, in the big areas, I am going to kind of smooth it out a little bit because it gets a little mottled, like I said. You get a bit of a weird kind of blotchy texture with washes, so I'm just going to make sure that not a lot of wash is on the big flat areas there. And then we have that leg, that foot. Perfect. Okay, there we go. Black wash on the Iron Golem. And that is the second step completed. Perfect. All right, we're going to put that down, let that dry. That'll take a little while to dry, and then I think we're going to dry brush that to bring out the metal again, probably with gunmetal again. And then we'll use, maybe even do like a dry brush with silver and then use the ink after that. I don't have my fan is just out of reach. I forgot to put it beside me in my cart here on the side, so we're just going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. So silly. So many questions. There's so much chat. I love it. I love it. I love it. So excited for the vampires and vampire hunters. Nice lineup this month, Jason. Thank you so much, Vanikid. Strahd rules. That's so cool. Just the story of Barovia and the mists, and freaking love it. So what better to lead up to our Curse of Strahd campaign than to have to paint some vampire hunters and a vampire. Which again, I think the miniature is modeled after Strahd. So that's super exciting. Okay, I'm gonna let this oh, look at this. See folks, this is what happens. Look, live, look. All that untouched. That's what happens as things start to dry. You start to see areas you missed. Clay Golem had primer on the side of his face. It's okay. All right, we'll put that one down. While we're waiting for these to dry, let's do a little story time, as usual. Okay, let's see. Iron Golem. Very cool. Very cool image. Paint all over the book, as usual, folks. I know, don't cry too bad. All right, it adds personality. Okay. Interesting. So, challenge level 16. Really? It's 16? That's really high. I didn't realize. 15,000 XP, ton of damage immunities. Pretty much everything. Except for adamantine and magical, of course. It's susceptible to. Lots of condition immunities. Fire absorption. Whenever the golem is subject to fire damage, it takes no damage. Instead, it regains a number of hit points equal to the fire damage dealt. So it actually takes, it's healed by fire. Immutable form. The golem is immune to any spell or effect that would alter its form. That might be the answer. I don't know if that's the case with... Yeah, stone you can't. So flesh to stone to flesh wouldn't work because it would change its form, and it is not. So there's your answer, Shannon. Magic resistance. The golem has advantage on saving throws against spells or magical effects. And there is attacks for magical, of course. 2 melee attacks. Slam is 3d8 plus 7. A sword is 3d10 plus 7. Holy cow. And then it's got poison breath. And then the clay golem is challenge 9, so not quite as crazy. 14 armor class. Lots of damage immunities as usual in conditions. It absorbs acid and heals from it. And if it starts its turn with 60 hit points or fewer, roll a d6 on a 6, the golem goes berserk. Crazy. Immutable form. I think they all have immutable form. Yeah, they all do. So you actually can't change the form of golem. Very interesting. I did not know that. There's a flesh golem. Creepy. Let's just put that over there in the corner. Have nightmares. Strahd versus Drizzt. I will drop $20 on Drizzt. I'd say yeah. I think Strahd is level... Just saw it the other day. I want to say he's level 15 or 16. I think Drizzt is too. So my money's on Drizzt. For sure. For sure. What are my thoughts on aboleths and mind flayers? Don't actually know a lot about aboleths, but mind flayers, love them. Super creepy. Super fun to play in your game. Like, not play as, but play against your players. Man, they're dangerous. Mind flayers are no joke. No joke. Okay, so... this is almost done. This clay golem is taking a little while to dry. It's a really cool sculpt, though. Really neat. This guy is getting there. Still a little wet. Okay, a little longer. I am going to start to add a wash to this clay golem. For some reason, the paint back here is a little watery, so I'm just going to spread it around a little bit so it dries a little faster. There. Add a bit of undiluted heavy CN in the back here. There we go. And that should be dry, hopefully, by the time I get up there. So I'm going to go ahead, still have black wash that is wet in my palette. And I'm going to add a black wash all over the golem. Now again, this will bring out all of that really cool clay texture. All the lines, divots, the creases, all that stuff. Vampiric drits, that is terrifying. But yeah, that would be very cool. Have any of you folks run Curse of Strahd? And if you have, how did you find it? What were the challenges in that sending? What were the benefits? What were the highlights? Love to hear. This is the first time in many years. Probably, I don't want to date myself, but lots and lots of years. Almost decades. Like almost multiples of decades. It's definitely been 1 decade. Multiple numbers of decades I haven't run anything to do with Ravenloft. So running this Curse of Strahd campaign is going to be fun. Wolf ABG says, question, I'm a beginning DM in my D&D group at school since I have the most experience, and I have some unpainted minifigures and wondering what brand should I get for starting out. That's a great idea, and I played that campaign, just got done with it. Nice. And not just because we're sponsored by WizKids and we feature WizKids in this show, the WizKids miniatures are super readily available. You can paint them right out of the pack, which is great. They're really easy to paint, and we paint all of our miniatures within like 2 hours. Last week we painted all 4 elementals in an hour and a half. So it's actually quite quick and not too hard. And they're really cheap, like affordable. I don't want to say cheap. Cheap makes it sound like they're not good quality. They're really affordable, and the quality on these miniatures is pretty awesome. And they're branded D&D official miniatures, which means when you are putting a clay golem like this one on your table against your players, it is actually the same design as the one in the monster manual. So that just helps to really kind of invest players into the creatures that they're actually seeing pictures of. That is a clay golem. Looks like an oil golem right now with black wash. And we're going to let that dry because that is definitely going to take a little while. Hope that helped. There's lots of options out there, but WizKids, for me, best bang for the buck, and official content, which for me is important. I'm a purist that way. But welcome as a beginning DM. That's amazing. And they are really nice sculpts. Oso says that is absolutely 100% the truth. Okay. So I am done with that. I am going to take gunmetal again. Nah, I think I'm going to take silver, folks. I'm going to skip the gunmetal. I use gunmetal as a base, but I think I'm going to go right to silver because I don't want to. Well, let's see. Let's find out. I'm going to give it a go first. I'm going to try the gunmetal first, see what that does. Dry brush again, folks. Load your brush. Wipe most of it off on a paper towel, and then run the brush lightly against the grain across the miniature, and that will just pick up the higher detail and leaving the wash in the recesses. Now, no point for me going gunmetal because it is a little dark, so I'm just going to go right ahead and start to dry brush with silver. Now, the silver is quite a bit lighter. You'll see it start to light up right away, and it should pick up all the high details while, like I said, still leaving the shadows. And that's actually looking quite nice. Working well. And then I think after we do the red ink, I'm going to do some like edge highlighting and almost kind of weathering more than highlighting with silver after the fact, so it looks like some of the corners of the golem have been recently kind of hit with weapons or kind of rubbed off recently, just to show wear on the edges. Kind of like the idea. doing that. So I'm gonna. Okay. Okay, so that's decent. That is with a dry brush of silver over top of that black wash. We're gonna let sit. It shouldn't take too long to let that dry. The metallics tend to dry fairly quickly, but we're just gonna let that sit for 1 second. Check back on the golem, still wet. So we'll just put the clay golem back on the table there. And because you're dry brushing this, that actually, because it's dry, in the name, we don't have to worry too much about how long it takes to kind of dry that thing. That mini is so cool. Look at that miniature, guys. The detail. Really neat. Question: what made you decide to start doing online tutorials? P.S. Your tutorials helped me make the decision to buy paints and start painting my beholder. Dopey. I'm so happy to hear that. That is why we do this. Awesome. What made me decide? Honestly, and I've said this many times before, I watched tutorials myself when I was into wargaming, and I watched painting tutorials, and that's what actually helped me to start to learn how to paint and make decisions and different techniques like dry brushing and edge highlighting and overbrushing and all that kind of stuff. So tutorials were really helpful, just like the ones that we do here. And that's where I started painting. But then when it came to tutorials, I started actually doing terrain tutorials and gaming aid tutorials. We made a dungeon screen and some terrain, and you can see those on our YouTube page, so you can check that out. But it was actually Jeremy from Black Magic Craft who kind of inspired me to do it. Others like him, DM Scotty, of course, the craft father himself, and all these other friends of mine who have become now friends of mine, who make really incredible things and then just put them on YouTube. And I was learning about them when I started playing D&D again for the first time in 20 years. So it was really fun. And Jeremy did something kind of next level production-wise that really resonated with me. And so I thought, you know what? I want to give this a go. So I did. And here we are, 3 years later, and having so much fun doing it. Next, we're going to use red ink. With red ink, the inks are fairly, not opaque, but thick with Vallejo, which is great because you can always dilute something. You can't always make something thicker. So I am going to definitely dilute quite a bit on the red because I don't want it to be too stark. We're going to test it first. We test it on the bottom here along the back. Now that is really strong. You see that? So knowing that, we're just going to spread that out a little bit, and I'm going to dilute even further until I'm happy with the level of red tinge I'm getting out of that. I'm basically going to go around the miniature like this with this red ink and paint it over. Now I'm going all over with this. And then again, like I said, I'm probably going to go back and just touch it up a little bit in certain areas, or like edge highlight so that that metal comes out. But look at that. It almost looks like a red metallic creature. You also want to be careful not so that it doesn't necessarily rest in the recesses. You do not want this necessarily to work as a wash, because it would be dark in the recesses, not necessarily red. What we're doing is we're tinting the surface area of this miniature, not using it as a wash to add depth. So keep that in mind. And then hopefully when this dries, it'll darken a little bit and it'll blend well with the rest. But in the front, it's looking really cool. In fact, I'm actually happy with the fact that it looks a lot like the design from the Monster Manual. And that same sort of, look at that, side by side, you can see that that red is doing exactly what I'd hoped it would, which was to tint the surface of the metal to give it a bit of a reddish metal look. Not this kind of metal. Well, that kind of metal too, I guess. Almost want to be listening to AC/DC while I know that's not metal, but you know what I mean. All right. We're going to do this all over. Again, I'm diluting just a little bit. Now, at this point, I've decided to add a bit more ink in instead of less. And, you know, you can feel for yourselves. Now, again, I don't want to get it necessarily on the sword, which I forgot about in some of these areas. I want to keep the sword kind of that gunmetal color. But the rest, I'd like to tint with this red. And again, I don't want this ink to be opaque on the metal. I want the metal to show through. I want to get the shine from the metal still. So I'm being careful not to put it on too thick so that it goes matte and opaque. I still want the glossiness of the metal to shine through here. And I think it's working. Question, Jason, how have you played D&D? Because I've been playing the D&D video games and I'm thinking about starting to play D&D tabletop game. Yeah, like I said, I started when I was 12, 13 years old with my buddies at home, kind of in middle school and then into high school, and then took a really long break, actually. I got really into video games. I worked in the video game industry for about 15 years, designing mobile games, actually. And then I was at a party. I've told this story a number of times on here. I was at a party with some friends, and we said, hey, you know what? It's been a really long time since we played D&D. We should try that again. And that was like 3 or 4 years ago. And here we are. One of those guys who I started playing D&D with again was, his name was Todd. And he was a really good friend of mine. And one of the major reasons why this channel exists, and unfortunately he took his life last April, didn't show up for one of our sessions. I got worried and found out that was the case. So, you know, one thing that was apparent, and he vocalized, was, you know, through tough times, D&D was one of those things that really kept him going and allowed him to kind of, you know, get through and distract himself from some of the realities of life. So, not to bring the stream down, but just to kind of, it's real, folks, and D&D brings people together. It's funny because I always, you know, people always used to complain that D&D was the thing that kind of made people antisocial, right? Like, put people into their basements in the darkness with their friends, kept them out from outside, kept them from playing sports and all of that stuff. And that was, you know, when I was a kid, a really big kind of issue with a lot of people when it came to D&D and people who played it. And then video games came along. And in a lot of ways, video games became the thing that isolated people and took people out from being social to just kind of in front of their televisions and doing stuff. And then video games got that name. And now the funny thing for me is that D&D is now taking people out of their homes playing video games and socializing them again in a game environment, which I think is a pretty awesome and beautiful thing. And I've heard so many stories about how D&D really brings people together, especially in this day and age. So I don't know why I said all that, but that's why I started playing D&D again. And here we are, painting clay golems on the D&D Twitch. It's pretty amazing and insane all at the same time. All right, so we've got a nice red clay golem now. I actually really like just the way that it is almost. So what I'm going to do very, very carefully, because that ink is pretty much dry, and as it continues to dry, I'm going to take a dry brush, again, loading my brush with some silver, wiping a lot of it off, and then I'm going to go through some of the sharpest edges of the miniature, like the chest and kind of the neck piece, some of the face, and I'm going to dry brush some of that silver back on here. That's going to bring back a little bit of that shine. It's going to subdue a little bit of the red, which is okay, and bring back some of that metallic, which we want to be able to do a little bit here. So I'm going to do that kind of, not all over, but just in key areas here. Key areas almost of wear too. So right on the tops of the feet, the bottom here, and that's going to bring and make it nice and shiny again for the most part. Just a really light dry brush, because you don't want to take away that red, because I really like how that kind of landed there, so I don't want to ruin that. There. Like that. Okay, so that actually, look at that, folks. Pretty stinking close. Thank you, Shannon. Shannon says, sad to hear, but yeah, it's unfortunately one of the realities of life, but D&D does bring people together, and it is important. There we go. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Even the pose is the same, folks. Isn't that nuts? Man, WizKids did such a good job of capturing that Iron Golem pose. Okay, so now the fun part with this miniature. The fun part with this miniature for me is going to be to weather it. So first things first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my kind of more detailed brushes, and I'm going to grab silver again, but now with a brush, so not dry brushing. I'm going to actually paint it along the edges. So using the side of my brush, not the tip of my brush, I'm going to paint a little bit of that silver along some of these edges. Again, some of the edges that I imagine, some of the corners that I imagine, you know, would take the most wear and tear. And just in certain areas, not in all. It's a bit too much on the front. Not in all, but just in some. As if kind of the paint has chipped off a little bit and it's taken a little bit of a beating. And then I'm also going to paint silver along the all the little scratches and gouges, like all the sword marks, because it's got a bunch of nicks in it. So I'm actually gonna do that as well. On the bottom here, like that. And then go in here, wipe that off. Take my detail brush here. Now this is my 0 brush. And basically in some of these areas, I'm going to paint silver right into the deep cuts, as if there's metal under. And we've kind of worked our way through here to the metal as we've hit these things with adamantine blades or magical blades. There we go. Love this part. This part for me, the weathering and all the finishing stuff is always the most fun for me. Make this sword a little bit crazier too. I'm gonna kind of edge highlight silver along the top edge and along the edge there. Okay, back to the clay golem. We're gonna let that sit for a second. That iron golem, clay golem is now dry. The wash is dry. It's a little tacky still. I'm going to put it down again. Just let it dry a little bit further. I am going to now, for some real fun, go in and add some weathering effects. Now we are going to use, now you don't necessarily want to overdo it. You want to be smart about how much you actually use of this stuff. Because if you overdo it, sometimes it looks a bit much. For me, I just want slight, kind of weathering, because it is a magical creature of sorts, right? Construct. So here we are using rust texture from the Vallejo Environment Weathering Effects line. And basically it's got some grit to it. So it looks like old rust. That is way too big a brush. It's got some grit to it. So what I want to do is I'm going to paint it into some of the recesses where rust would start. I'm going to do it onto the sword here. And I'm stippling, so what I'm doing is I'm dabbing it into some of these areas here. And you imagine rust would probably start to happen along some of the edges and in some of the divots as well. So I'm going to add a little bit of rust in here, maybe in here. And again, this rust is the thick, kind of coarse rust that's really gritty. So I don't want to use too much of it. I want to be sparing for me with this because we have lots of stuff we can put on here, but especially in the joints, along the top, maybe along the bottom of some of his armor here. I'll put some along the top here, maybe in this divot, there's some rust. This guy was not built yesterday. He's got some mileage on him. Definitely want to paint it into some of the joints, to some of those divots there. Yeah, cool. There we go. Okay. Then, so that's the dry rust. Sorry, the rust texture, I should say. Question: the Iron Golem's eyes look like my eyes when they glow in the dark. What is your monster indeed? So, yeah, so we are going to do the glowing eyes. That'll be probably the last step on this Iron Golem. Will be those glowing eyes. But look at that rust texture on the sword now. It looks like real rust, folks. So cool. But we're going to take it even further. Dry rust. Dry rust is a effects paint from the Game Color line. We are going to use that just to... Now this is like the texture, but just not textured, if that makes sense. So basically it's the rust color without the actual kind of grit around it. So basically what I'm doing is I've put the texture in the middle here on the sword, and then I'm painting this kind of around it a little bit, and building it out. And we're trying to get a gradual rust color outside of all that dry rust. I'm going to do this I'm really liking how this is looking, and how this is going on to the model. So I'm just going to do it pretty much in some, not all the recesses, but some really clear recessed areas here. Because it's just cool grime for this guy. Imagine this guy's been like guarding a hidden tomb or a mage's tower or study for a long time and has been called to defend it. That's kind of the idea here. So there. Nice grime and grit. You can see kind of some of that we've added there. Cool. Then, once that's dry, we're going to go to rust. Now this is really bright. It looks a lot brighter than it should, but it's actually an effect paint. So it's not just a bright orange paint color. It dries a little differently than normal paint does. But I'm going to grab some of this, and we want to be sparing with this orange. But basically, this is like fresh rust. And I'm just going to stipple it kind of into the grip area here on the sword. And then I'm also going to just put it into the middle of this area in the middle of the sword. You see how I'm just stippling just a touch? And what it's doing is it's looking like kind of fresh rust in there. Look at that. Man, I love these effects. I don't want to do it with this orange, overdo it with this orange. And in fact, I'm actually hesitant to do it anywhere on the miniature itself because I feel like a lot of his rust would be old, but I'm maybe just going to add a little bit in some of the heavier areas. So just in the center of the areas that I've added the rust texture to. Let's see. Maybe up in here. Oh, that looks cool. Okay. It's all about testing and having fun, and add some at the tip of this boot. Definitely think I want some rust down here at the bottom, just along the bottom of the boot here. And again, this is going to dry differently than a regular paint, so it's not just a bright orange paint. Like that. Okay. A little bit into the recesses and some of the gears. Maybe a bit up here. There. That sword is a kind of a good example of what it could look like. Just a rusty sword. You do not want to be hit by that. Okay. That's good for the rust stuff. I don't want to add too much more. I kind of like where it's at. Subtle. Good to go. Last kind of environment effect for that iron golem is fuel stains. Now, fuel stains is it's an engine effect from Vallejo. I wanted to try a bunch of fun stuff that I haven't really used before. Now for fuel stains, basically what that is it's just like an ink of sorts. And what I want to do is I want to run it down almost like streaks. Down the miniature. And I'm going to run it basically almost like it's dripped down certain areas, and then I'm going to go back in with some black wash, I think. But I'm just giving it's going to give it a subtle hint of drips down some of it there. That's probably enough for that, for me. And then I'm going to, like I said, use a black wash. I'm going to use the detail brush because these drips, for me, in my mind's eye, would be really fine. I'm not going to dilute the wash at all. And I'll show you folks what I mean here. So, for example, on the chest plate here, I'm just going to paint a little line down. So it looks like, basically like runoff. Like water has settled, dirt and grime has settled, and it's begun to drip down some of these areas here, like that. It's got to go on fairly thick for this to work. Don't be afraid to do it. I even sometimes build it up in the corner like that on the glove there, the gauntlet, and then pull it down. So build it up in this area and then pull it right down. This guy's been around the block for a while. He's seen some stuff. Okay. Cool. All right, I think that's it for the body of the Iron Golem. Only thing left to do on that Iron Golem is to paint the eyes. So we might as well finish the Iron Golem in its entirety first. We're going to take Orange Fire, which is a bright orange paint. And we are going to ever so carefully dot these eyes, which is always fun, especially on a miniature this size. I mean, this is a medium miniature, but what's a wash? Is it like a weathering effect? So Wolf, ABG, a wash is a design. So this is a black wash. They have all different kinds. And wash is basically you just brush it over the entire model, manipulate it into the recesses, and then it adds shadow into those recesses. Here we go. So this is going to be tough because these eyes are very small, but I'm basically just going to paint orange into the eye like that and like that. And it's going to look like it's glowing a little bit. It's a very small area. Like that. Just touch it up a little bit. I went a little over. It's okay. And then with pale yellow, we are going to dot that area so it looks like a burning orb in the middle of the eye. It's a little too wet. It's not transferring. Still wet. Weird. Try that again. There we go. Very small, but you get the effect. Okay, that is the Iron Golem body. We still have to do the base, but we'll get that done. Okay, so for the clay golem, this is going to be super easy, folks. These sorts of kind of monotone creatures are quite simple to do for the most part. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a dark flesh tone, which is a little, actually, it's about the same color as heavy sienna. It's just a bit more reddish. It's a bit more reddish. And now it's quite a bit lighter because now we've darkened that heavy sienna with the wash, right? So again, we're going to dry brush this all over the miniature, going against the grain or against the detail, lightly kind of pushing it across the surface so that it's picking up all of that raised detail, and you can see that. But it's still maintaining the black wash in the recesses. This isn't going to lighten the model too much, just a touch, just enough. It's kind of a mid-tone. It's our mid-tone highlight at this stage. It's the Parasite Brown that's really going to bring this thing to life. But this guy is just going to get an all-over dry brush with this dark flesh tone. Like that. Looks pretty dark still, right? Wait for it. Now, with Parasite Brown, which is, you can see, quite a bit lighter. Put some of that into our palette. And we're going to dry brush that on. Now, watch this. Right across those abs. This clay golem's been working out. You can see now how it's really coming into its own and starting to, the details really starting to come through, and it's starting to lighten up quite a bit. One technique that I use when I dry brush is after I've loaded the brush, I actually make sure that I hit the areas that I want to be the lightest first, because that's going to be the most paint is going to be distributed onto the miniature or applied to the miniature at that point. So I always start with the areas I want to be the brightest, like the shoulders, the knees, the fingertips, that sort of thing. And then as the paint starts to transfer to the miniature, I can move around because now I'm not too concerned about really lightening those kind of shadowed areas or darker areas afterward. So just a little tip. Like I'm going to start here on the shoulders and then work my way in, because otherwise it'll just look all flat if all areas have the same level of dry brush on them. That's pretty good. That might be a wrap on the clay golem body. There's a lot of shadow today, folks. I apologize for that. There we go. That's the clay golem body. That is the iron golem body. This clay golem is still a little dark for me. I'm going to add a bit more of this parasite brown across the miniature, lighten them a little bit, and then this wasn't planned, and again I like to do these things live so you can kind of see how I problem solve or help me figure out some of these, you know, the solutions to some of these issues together. So I'm going to take some pale yellow, actually mix it with that parasite brown for a additional highlight. This highlight I'm just going to dry brush tips of the fingers, tips of on the chest, top of the head, face, bicep, tips of the fingers. These are the areas that would get the most light. If the light were coming from the top, from this direction, it's those areas that would get the most. So toes, knees, fingers, chest, and then on the back to buttocks, back, heel. That's it. What, elbow? Nah, that's better. Now he stands out a bit more, and he's got some more life to him. Okay. Good. All right. So now the bases. For the bases, I'm actually going to base coat them with. I'm going to go with heavy sienna to start. Amazing thing is, folks, is heavy sienna was the first color that we used in our palette. It's still good enough to paint with, and that's the thing about Vallejo. It stays wet in your palette a little longer, so you can work with it more. But that was, you know, an hour and, you know, over an hour ago, and it's still workable. I had a little bit of water to it, but it's still wet enough that I can paint with it, which is awesome. So then I'm going to base coat the entire base with this heavy sienna. Question: any suggestions for color matching the heavy colors with a regular, less pigmented paint? Are there one-to-one equivalents? There are. I don't have any, like, there aren't any official charts, of course. If you have a different brand of paint and you want to swap in some Vallejo for that, or vice versa, there aren't any official charts that I know of, but you can just Google equivalent charts, like paint equivalents or the brand that you're looking for, Vallejo charts, and you can find stuff online. If you want to kind of switch to Vallejo, there's definitely that ability online. That would be my suggestion, is just Google it, and I know there are some there. When I switched, I looked at it quite a bit, actually. Vatican says, I know who you meant. I know too, I think. You have a nice day too, Dopey. Unfortunately, Dopey has to head out. I apologize. I don't know how late it is in your part of the world. I know some people were watching overseas. It's got to be super late for them. Or early, depending on where in the world they are. Okay, so again, heavy sienna. Then we're going to wash it with a black wash, and then we're going to dry brush it. Just a quick dry brush on the base. I don't usually spend too much time on my bases, just because I don't want them to take away from the actual miniature, which can happen if bases are overdone. For me, the epic kind of bases don't make a lot of sense for these miniatures for me. All right, so heavy sienna on the bottom of that one. Now this one, because he has a base of heavy sienna, it's going to blend quite a bit. I don't want it to totally blend, and the reason why, even though he came from, I imagine he like morphed out of the ground, or at least, you know, is in the area maybe where there's clay color. I don't want him to totally, I don't want to lose him in it, basically. So his base is going to be darker than his body is, because his base is not going to get the pale yellow parasite brown, which is also part of the reason I did that. It's not going to get that highlight. Nice and quickly, some heavy sienna in and around all of these areas here. There, and you can see too that the recess, the black wash is resting into the recesses between the foot and the base, and it's added this really cool delineating kind of shadow, which is great. It's what we want. It's tone drop shadow. Now we're going to let that heavy sienna dry. Oh, my back is awesome right now. Melinda says, the rust makes it pop. Thanks, Melinda. Appreciate that. Dave Shrump says, not as familiar with these Vallejo technicals. I have to check them out. They're pretty awesome, Dave. A lot of your local game stores will carry them. Lots of people watching tonight, folks. Thank you, everybody, on Thanksgiving weekend. No doubt. Again, if you like what you're seeing, I'll take the opportunity right now to follow us on Twitch, like us on Facebook. You can catch all the VODs on our YouTube channel, which you should subscribe to, because every time we upload anything to those, you'll get notified. So make sure. And then on all the socials, we post on Instagram all the shots, and you can see all the shots of the minis that we've done so far on Instagram, and that's at RealmSmith TV, as well as Facebook is RealmSmith TV as well. A little plug. And make sure that you tag us when you post your own creations, because we want to see what you guys did at home, for sure. But again, folks, that was basically, we're pretty much done, and that was 2 minis to a decent level of detail in an hour and a half. So I know it can be daunting to think to sit down and paint a mini if you've never done it before, but frankly, you know, if you follow pretty simple techniques, you can get a really decent kind of tabletop standard with very little time and effort. So he is blending really like too much for my liking into this base, which I knew would happen. So I'm going to lighten that base with some Parasite Brown, and well, darken it first with some wash, and then lighten it with some Parasite Brown. It's going to be good. I'm going to grab my fan, which is right over there. Like I said, I feel like I might be coming down with the flu, so I don't want to overdo it and then be sick for PAX. Is there anybody who's watching that's going to be at PAX that we get to say hi to? Let me know. If there's anybody who will be joining us either for the classes or is just coming to PAX and is planning to say hi, please sound off in the chat. What tips can you share for keeping your brushes in good shape? Joel Klein, great question, Joel. I would say, for me, the best case is always wash your brushes after every color right away. Don't let them sit, because if you let them sit, they will dry up really quickly. I have one of these too. They really help to dry paints nice and fast when you're kind of on a time limit doing a painting tutorial on Twitch. That's the first thing. Second thing is, and I'll just pause this for a second and show you. So, for your brush, you have your bristles. This is the ferrule. This kind of area here, the metal part, is called the ferrule. Try and not get paint up to there. If you can load your brush kind of halfway up the bristles, that is the ideal kind of area, or 3/4 of the way up. Because when you get paint in the ferrule, and for those of you who paint will attest to this, all of a sudden this gets all stiff, and then the only movement you have is at the top of your brush, and this gets all kind of hard, and you don't want that. You don't want to clog that ferrule. It causes rust to build, and it'll mess up your brushes. A bit of an advanced technique, and make sure you, again, rinse your brushes after every color, wash them right away, and then you can also get, and I always forget the name of it, I have it in the other room, there's a soap that you can wash your brushes with. Artist's Choice, I believe it's called. Maybe you guys can link it or mention it in the chat. But anyways, where you basically, it's like a round container, you place your brush in it, lather it up, and then rinse it, and it actually cleans off a lot of the gunk that you get in there. And that ad right there, folks, is supposed to say the 6th. I'm sorry, it says the 5th. It is Monday, January the 6th is Into the Mist premiere, which is our Curse of Strahd campaign, live D&D on Twitch. Okay, so that is done there. I actually don't even know if I'm going to do a wash on this, because it's pretty dark. That base is pretty dark. I don't think I'm going to do a wash. I think I'm just going to dry brush it. And again, I'm going to use Parasite Brown for that, and I'm basically just going to go across the edge here onto the main area. The reason I'm not using a wash is because it's going to get dark again. I'm going to have to build it up again, and for the most part, it's just a small little base. So I do want it to look like maybe he came from the ground. Don't know if, actually, I don't even know if clay golems can do the same as, say, an earth elemental can. I don't think they can. But anyways, I just want to make it maybe feel like he is protecting the area that the clay that he was made from is. So that's it. That is a complete clay golem. This one was fast. You could do this one in 10, 15 minutes. It's all one color. They don't even have eyes, really. They don't have eyes that are delineated at all. Kind of like the earth elemental we did the other day. This is taking a little longer to dry, so we're just gonna let that go for a sec. Kelly says, I have a few miniatures I would like to paint, but I'm afraid to. Again, Kelly, people say that a lot. I want to wait till I'm good enough to paint the good minis. The way that I learned to paint is just to paint. That's the best way to learn. And just take some chances. And frankly, it's just you and your players at the table. And having painted miniatures on the table is better than not having painted miniatures at the table. A painter once told me, and I wish. Oh, Terry Latorco told me once. She said, "My favorite color is done," which is a great way to look at it. As long as they're on the table and they're painted and they've got some paint on them and they look decent, it's better than the white plastic pre-primed, of a pre-painted mini. Just take the chances. Follow some techniques. Follow some tutorials. You'll get there. There's no need to be afraid of it, for sure. Master's Brush Cleaner. That's what it is. So thank you so much. Havana Kid says, where or when do you post the paint list for this month's minis? I've been posting them day of. I know that's not soon enough, folks. I apologize. I posted the day of today. So I posted today's colors earlier today. So I apologize for that. That is not enough time for those of you that don't have the colors to get them. But when I do post them, I post them on our Facebook page. So make sure that you follow our Facebook page. And then when I post the notice of, hey guys, join us this week for these minis, in the comments, I'll put the paint list. Hopefully that works for you, Havana, and let me know if there's any other way that I can make that easier for you guys to get those paints. I know it's not soon enough, and you need a bit more lead time. And in the future, I will try and do that. It just gets really crazy busy, especially with PAX Unplugged right around the corner, which is a crazy big show. So, but I will be better, folks. I will be better, because I know some of you folks like to paint along with us live, which I'd love to get to a point where we're all painting these guys together, and then you guys are posting the photos, and I get to see your awesome work. I'd love nothing more than to be able to paint together on air, so, or at the same time, I should say. Although, at some of the shows where we do master classes like Origins, we do paint live over the internet from the show. And PAX, we will be painting with you folks, and then we're going to be posting it after. So, okay, so I've added the black wash here, maybe a bit heavy. I might sop a little bit of that up here, but yeah, that's the black wash on the base of the Iron Golem. And then we're just going to lighten that with some Parasite Brown after, once it's dry. Thanks, Savannah. Appreciate that. He says that loves the streams and the videos. I appreciate you saying that. Question: do you have Discord, and what biggest project you did? Okay, I don't have Discord. That's something that I should definitely. I mean, a lot of people have said that. I know a lot of people are using it, so I'd love to look into it. And what's the biggest project we did on this show? The biggest project we did was the Frost Giant. Check out the check out the Frost Giant tutorial. It's 3 parts, so 6 hours, and it's the most detailed kind of advanced tutorial that we've done. And I was really happy with the way that it turned out in the end. So, if you're interested in something, a really great project, advanced project, then check that out. Wolf King says, what is Into the Mist? Into the Mist is our new Curse of Strahd campaign that we are starting January 6th. Monday, January 6th. It says January 5th. But January 6th, we will be playing Curse of Strahd live on our Twitch channel and YouTube and Facebook all at the same time every Monday. It's our new stream. We did Order of Dragonsbane for a while. We put that on hiatus now. The story arc that we're working on is complete. It's come to an end, and we are now moving into a Curse of Strahd campaign for 3 months. And we're going to do 3-month seasons of different settings, so people don't feel like they're watching episode 30 of a 30 thing. So, anyways, so check it out. January 6th, join us. Interactive Curse of Strahd campaign. Be there. I know, it says January 5th. It's January 6th. I apologize. That's my mistake. It should be the 6th. It will be for the next time. Okay. Man, this fan speeds things up like 3 times. Makes them 3 times as fast, I tell you. It's pretty great. Almost done. I would love to paint the stone golem. I don't know if... Has WizKids released a stone golem yet? And the year is wrong too. Sorry, it is. It's not January 5th, 2019. It's January 6th, 2020. Oh man. That's what I get for doing a last minute ad. Sorry guys. You're right. January 6th, 2020. Of course. All right, so that is enough for sure. So that is a dry base, or dry enough as it needs to be for me to do what I'm about to do. I am just going to dry brush the base using some Parasite Brown. That's what I have on hand, and will look decent. And it's a bit of a different shade than the rest of the miniature, and that's the idea. The idea is that I want it to be, I want the mini to stand out from the base, So contrast through color is the best way to achieve that. Try not to get the actual mini with this dry brush. I mean, sometimes you want to get the bottom of the mini with a dry brush because then it looks like, you know, their feet are dusty from the environment that they're in. Okay, that is it, folks. That is the Iron Golem. We'll get a turn here of the Iron Golem. Again, I'll be posting photos of this week, and I will be posting the VODs on YouTube as well. Or the VOD for this. And clay golem. There we go. Iron and clay complete. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching once again. It's been such a awesome... Oh, Fragmentees, welcome. Time is convoluted in Ravenloft. That's so true. In Barovia, you never really know what's going on. It's just a nasty... Into the Mist is now premiering January 6, 2020. You're welcome, Jason. What happened? Did something change? That's great. That's funny. All right. Again, thank you so much, folks. That was another awesome time of chatting and painting and all of that stuff. Again, stay tuned for the VODs this week. They will be hosted or posted on the YouTube, D&D's YouTube and the RealmSmith YouTube. Check that out, youtube.com/RealmSmith or D&D. Next week, we are in PAX. Check us out there if you're there. Please sign up for whatever classes you want. It's going to be so much fun. We'll see you Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Please stop by the booths and say hi and join us for as many classes as you'd like. It's awesome and fun, and we have such a blast when we're there. So hope to see you guys there. Next week, so then Shambling Mound will be posted. It'll be pre-recorded, but from PAX on Sunday night for those that missed the Shambling Mound when we didn't do them because we did the Elementals last week instead of the Shambling Mound. I want to thank WizKids, of course, and Vallejo and D&D for hosting us tonight. It's always such a pleasure and an honor to be involved. Again, Black Friday sale until Tuesday. We are offering $30 off our adventure boxes. If you want to try them, it's only $39 for the first month. Cancel it at any time. Check it out. Our adventure boxes are everything that you need to run a adventure every month, and we get a continual adventure as part of a big campaign delivered to your doorstep with miniatures and a bunch of immersive stuff and candles and paper craft and terrain and blah, and miniature. It's crazy. It's nuts and awesome. We love it, and hopefully you guys love it too. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, we have a Christmas special coming December 15th for just for fun before our Into the Mist campaign. And then Into the Mist, our Curse of Strahd campaign, starts January 6th and will run for 3 months. Thank you so much, guys. You guys have a wonderful week. Stay warm for those of you that live in this area. I will rest my voice, and hopefully not be sick for PAX. We'll see you guys soon.